Hi again, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm, and today I want to talk to you about LED lamps from a slightly different point of view. I asked my audience about this because I've done grow lamp reviews before about what they would like to see in a video like this. They said, one, you got to make sure that whatever you're recommending product-wise is coming from an honest piece of feedback that you think it's actually the best product for the job. I've got you covered in that regard. I chose from amongst a few different suppliers this time and just chose the best one. So I have a good recommendation for you in the Groplanner O series. It's a kind of a modular design, and it also comes with some smart features that can allow you to schedule it or dim it from directly within your smartphone. So that's kind of a cool upgrade on the traditional LED lamps. The second thing people asked about is, can you please do this from a growing point of view, but don't do it from the growing of cannabis point of view? And I totally understand that. If you look at the way the ads are written on these grow lights, there's so much of grams of yield, and we know what they're talking about. But most of my audience is not growing cannabis, to be fair. Mostly here we're talking about ornamental plants, outdoor gardening, seedlings, propagation. So that's the angle that I'm going to tackle it from today. So that's what I'm first going to talk about, is why you would use these lamps. What would you need them for? Let's talk real quick here about some of the growing challenges of winter, because the obvious one is cold, but the light levels become a limiting factor as well. Here on high northern latitudes, I'm at about the 49th parallel, the sun is low angle over the winter, which means we get a lot less light. In fact, if you look at that mountain behind me here, this is Sumas Mountain, the sun doesn't even peek out from behind that until about 9:30 in the morning now, and for later into the winter it goes to about 11 o'clock, where we don't even see any direct light if the sun isn't hidden behind clouds anyway. It's low intensity overall. So whether I'm growing indoor plants by my windowsills, obviously those struggle a little bit because there's a lot less light, or whether I'm trying to keep my cuttings alive over the winter. Now, I made a video last weekend where I talked about this very topic, about how you overwinter cuttings, especially the ones you took a little bit later in the season. And you'd almost give me credit for planning this kind of thing, although I know better than that. But ultimately, having the lights improves your options, whether you want to keep them in a cold room inside the house or whether you keep them a little bit warmer. One of the limiting factors there is how much light you can have to just keep them in the game, to stop the stretching of the plant. So think about it this way, and this is the strategy I'd like to promote for you, is I'll be starting seedlings early in the spring anyway, and I want to have intense lights to get me that jump on the season. If what I can do now is have this lamp in hand, help it to light up my high light loving house plants. The philodendrons that I grow don't need a lot of light, but if you have orchids or something like that, they'll enjoy the boost. Or of course, if you're trying to keep your cuttings or indoor sheltered plants active during the winter and keep some light on them, you can use the lamp for that for now, and then of course early in the spring you can repurpose that out to be a superb lamp for reducing the stretch on seedlings, because you know how much of a problem that is. So that's the way I would recommend you use this, and you'll notice that none of those uses really have a lot to do with cannabis. The lights that we're using here have the intensity where if you turn them up 100% and keep them fairly low to the plants, they can of course support the heavy growth of a light loving plant and a high yielding plant like cannabis for fast growth. But for indoor plants, for keeping your cuttings, generally I'm going to recommend a little bit of a higher hanging, something around 30 inches, and you can dim the intensity or reduce the duration as you need to during the winter, just to supplement the light that you already have. But then you come to the seedlings in spring, again you keep that 30 inch or lower it to 24 and dim it a little bit, and it's a superb lamp for starting your cuttings. Well, at the risk of annoying my sponsor, I actually want to wedge in here a little lighting comparison between incandescent, fluorescent, high-pressure sodium, and LED. This will explain to you exactly why LED is the way to go if you've used any of these other things before. Now, first of all, you're all familiar with incandescent bulbs. They had some specialty plant lights made for incandescent, but it was never a serious competitor. And now, in terms of ranking these, I'm going to put these up on the screen here. I'm going to talk about lumens per watt, as sort of a very rough idea of their efficiency. I showed you how to measure lumens on your phone when I talked about how much light do your cuttings need. Lumens, as I say, are a measurement of what your eyes can see, not so much a measurement of what the plants use. But as a rough indication of efficiency, I'm going to put those on the screen now. So on incandescent, it was about 11 lumens per watt. That's dismal, awful. The next one that they used for seedlings an awful lot was fluorescents. So if you went down to a T5 fluorescent, 2 foot, 4 times on the fixture, I checked out that one there, and it puts out about 83 lumens per watt, which obviously is a big improvement from the incandescents, but still not particularly efficient. Next thing I compared it to was 150 watt high pressure sodium, which isn't the most efficient high pressure sodium, but I wouldn't expect people to be putting 1,000 watt high pressure sodium into their houses. So I wanted to stick within the wattage range here of what you could realistically use in your house. And 150 watt high pressure sodium gives you a lumens per watt rating of about 105 lumens per watt. Now this LED lamp that I'm talking about, and again the modern ones, the new ones, this Groplanner lamp puts out 170 lumens per watt, and that's true whether you go for the smallest size or whether you go for a bank of them attached together. 170 lumens per watt, that's about, well, that's over twice as efficient as the fluorescents that you would typically have used in the past. So for the price of the fixture and for the running expense, there's really no comparison. In fact, a fluorescent that I talked about there might have cost you around $100. You can get into these grow lamps, these LED lamps, banks for about $100 as well if you're looking at the smaller sizes. So really there's no comparison. It just is far more efficient than the fluorescent lamps that people have traditionally been using, and it beats the heck out of the smaller high pressure sodiums, and the incandescent was never in the contest to begin with. Okay, let's go look at the lamp itself. So of all the options in front of me, this is the one I chose, the Groplanner O series, and it is a clever lamp. Clever because it's interconnectable. I'm going to show you the back here. This cast aluminum frame has these kind of supports behind them. It's kind of a modular setup. So you could place another lamp here, you could place another lamp here, or you could place them going out this way if you wanted to get some more length. So it depends on the table or the surface that you're growing on, how you would connect them. Very easy to hook up these clips between them. I'll get you some close-ups on that. So it's a nice cast aluminum solid frame, not too heavy because it's aluminum. The other thing I'm going to say, these drivers are smart because they can accept the smartphone accessories that allow you to dim it or program it for different timing. So you don't actually have to buy a timer. You can run it with a timer, but you don't have to actually buy a timer on this. Also, again, there is a model where you can dim manually if you don't prefer to run things through apps. That's an option for you. Front side of the lamp, there's an acrylic cover on the front of this here that stops these LEDs from being hit by any splashes of water. So that's kind of a nice feature for this as well. Some other things I like about this lamp. First of all, it's truth in advertising. I like the supplier for that. Many lamps out there, many LED lamps, do this deceptive thing where they talk about it being a 400 watt or a 600 or 1,000 watt, or they just use the model number 1000W to mislead the public. This supplier says that this takes 100 watts of power. You know what it takes? 100 watts of power. The two of them connected together take 200 watts. You can dim it down to 20% of its original setting. So if you have just this one lamp, you could have it running at 20 watts of power. So you get a lot of control over this. And like I say, I like that it's truth in advertising. It uses, instead of using a bunch of very powerful LEDs, it uses a higher number of lower power LEDs on here to get a more even distribution and also to run a little bit cooler, so I like that. When it comes to how much efficient it is for plant growth, the lumens per watt ratio isn't the perfect measurement for it, but the people who measure this for real, they actually have a meter that measures how much of that light can be used for photosynthesis. I watch a channel called MyGrow, and Shane from MyGrow did review this, so I kind of knew what I would be getting even before I started this process. And he said that it is a highly efficient lamp, on par with some of the better lamps on the market until you jump up to the $600 range. But it's really competitive within that range, and he described it as an excellent value for money. So I can't disagree with that. Well, I wasn't going to get away without at least one shot of the lights set up and working. Unfortunately, you can't tell a lot from a shot like this. It's so bright. But underneath there, take my word for it. There are full spectrum white LEDs mixed with some rows of red LEDs. That's going to combine together to make just about the perfect spectrum for growing lights. As for attachments that come in the box, just wait for a second while the light adjusts. It has these wire and carabiners that are a good attachment. It also comes with rope and pulley. I will mention one more thing if you're doing a setup on these, which is that when you first plug it in, the lights will strobe, sort of dim and then bright. That is an indication that it's ready to set up onto the software. The software link is included in the manual. If you don't want to use it with the automation software, you don't have to. You just leave it plugged in. That strobing will stop after 30 seconds, and then you can run it on your own timer or just plug it in and not as needed. Now I come to the plugging portion of this video, which is very, very short. There are a couple of coupon codes down below in the description of the video where you can go through and buy this on the Amazon store in the US, or you can buy it through the manufacturer's own website. Make sure to use those coupon codes because they have my name on it. Other than that, I just want to thank you so much for watching this video today. And if you have any questions, particularly as comes to LED lighting or artificial lighting for your plants, please drop those down in the comments below. And once again, thanks so much for watching.